Rich often argues that DLSS with 4K output is very unlikely on the Switch 2 based on his testing with multi-platform games. However, how likely is it that we will see Nintendo games targeting a 4K output or something between 1440p and 4K with DLSS ultra performance on Switch 2? Nintendo developed games are usually less demanding and often target the native resolution on the OG Switch. I think I covered this in my T239 video, but Alex, you covered it even before I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a while ago.
Like now. Years before.
It's crazy how it feels like we're on this odyssey with the Switch 2, talking about it for like half a decade at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is still a kind of misunderstanding in the way that DLSS works, specifically when you start addressing super high resolutions. So why don't you talk us through that?
So super high resolutions, the output resolution controls how expensive DLSS is, and that's basically it. So it's it's expansively more expensive than doing it at 1080p and 1440p, to the point where it becomes an extremely large part of the frame time of a game. And it would limit it, I think I said it, like it would limit it to have so much of the frame time being done by DLSS that it would make 60 FPS completely off the table. And I think Nintendo, minus a couple of more recent examples in certain titles, your Breath of the Wild. Oh, sorry. I'm forgetting the name of the kingdom. Oh my gosh.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. I was about to say Breath of the Wild 2. Tears of the Kingdom. And, the most recent Paper Mario, etc., a couple other games. I think they do like 60 FPS. And so that would take that off the table. And it would also it would leave like such a silly amount of like time for just a normal 30 FPS game for the rendering of that game that it'd just be laughable. It wouldn't really make too much sense. And I think that's why lower res was better. Yeah. Oliver?
I actually looked at this briefly and saw Rich's video, and he actually, in Death Stranding, he had it at 18 milliseconds of frame time just for DLSS to 4K, which is intense. That's like you're looking at over the frame time of a 60 FPS title. So in that case, it would only, like strictly speaking, only be viable for 30 FPS games, really.
Yeah.
1440p though is more doable, and 1440p can still look great in a 4K display. Obviously, that in his finding was 8 milliseconds of additional rendering budget relative to just rendering natively at 720p, going from 720p to 1440p.
Right.
So that seems much more doable to me. But maybe for 30 FPS you could go to 4K if you really wanted to, maybe, but it would be a little bit of a misuse of the resources of the device, I'd suggest.
Yeah, over half your GPU time spent on upscaling. That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, I think that's just not what developers would do. It would also leave so much less room for different stages in games that have different levels of load, because you'd always have this fixed cost that is so high. I just don't think it makes sense. Another thing that I would like to just speak out against is I don't think Nintendo targets native resolution for all their games. In fact, a lot of their games are sub-native, and even like older games of theirs have been sub-native in the past, first-party ones. They've used, isn't like the Super Mario, what was the last 3D Mario game that takes place in it's like the city game. What is the name of it?
Odyssey,
yeah, the one with the city at the end.
Takes place all over the place.
Yeah, but the city is the scenes I always think about. If I recall, that game, didn't it have like in the handheld mode do like a form of rudimentary? Res. Yeah, half res jittering, like almost like interlaced rendering.
Wasn't it?
Nintendo's willing to do that. Like I think that, and that's a really rough way to do things. So I don't think they necessarily target. One thing I'm curious is whether or not Nintendo uses DLAA actually for their games. Maybe they'll say, "Oh, it's 1080p, and we like the way that looks." But it would be like the first time Nintendo ever uses anti-aliasing. So, like, will they do it?
They've used some cheap AA before, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, you're right. A lot of the games don't have AA at all.
It's like 90% of the games don't have AA. It's crazy.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has quite beautiful AA, as does Luigi's Mansion 3, although those are not really
Yeah,
Nintendo internal. Those are Nintendo owned, but external. So that's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, that's what I mean mainly. Like the Nintendo in-house stuff that uses their own technology usually is just no AA, pretty much always. Yeah.
Yeah.